AI culling and editing tools are popping up everywhere, promising to save us photographers countless hours of time in post-production. Do they work yet? Are they worth it yet? Which tools should we even consider, and how in the end do you choose? I'm going to answer those questions and more as I talk through what I've learned after investigating some of these options. Essentially, if you're a high volume shooter, such as a wedding photographer, you'll want to look at after-shoot culling and editing because you'll get a big bang for your buck. Or if you need offline editing and compatibility with Capture One. If you're a Lightroom user that needs fast and consistent edits, and you're budget conscious and only want to pay when you actually have paying clients, you might want to try Imagen AI. And I'll throw in some thoughts about some of the other contenders out there worth watching. First, let's talk about if AI culling and editing actually works. Then I'll talk about the differences between some of the options, including pricing models, so you can calculate the value it might have for your business. I'm Brenda Bergering, giving you practical photography advice to complement Mark's gear reviews from our real-world experience as a husband and wife photo-video team. Hit subscribe, it helps us out. Like many photographers, we were resistant at first to the idea of AI culling and editing. I had tried to outsource my editing in the past and determined that the value just wasn't there. I could do it faster, more accurately to my style, and more economically. However, a lot of people were already outsourcing editing before these AI options hit the scene. Why? Because time, of course. Culling and editing a big shoot like a wedding can take many hours or even days, depending on your editing style and ability to make thousands of decisions. Time spent in the office is time we can't spend shooting. If as photographers we want to scale our businesses and make more money, we have to find ways to be more efficient so that we can book more work. Some businesses hire associates, others outsource editing, and many of us use various client management software or to-do list tools that help us be efficient in our businesses. The main hesitations are, number one, that outsourcing would result in an inferior final product to deliver to our clients. And number two, that outsourcing wouldn't be worth the money. Let's first talk about if programs like Imagen and Aftershoot work, and then we'll talk about the money. And then I'll talk about some other programs that you might want to look into. We've personally used Imagen for our editing for over a year. We've loved it. It's saved us many hours of editing time, and with their pay-as-you-go model, we only spend money on editing when we actually have a job where that money is coming in. Now, we're actually switching to Aftershoot this year. We tested it out on a wedding and determined that it would work great for us and will end up saving us money this year. But I'm getting ahead of myself and bringing up money again. So let me address the AI editing first. What works great about both Imagen and Aftershoot for businesses like us is that they learn our editing style from uploading a catalog of edited images. Since we've been shooting for something like 13 years and our editing style has remained fairly consistent, we have a lot of edited images from a wide variety of lighting conditions to send in order to teach these programs how we want them to edit our photos. So we can take our favorite images from the past 3 to 5 years and train the AI to edit like us. And tell you what, it gets pretty darn close. It goes beyond just adding our preset, but it tweaks white balance and exposure on various lighting conditions. It adds subject masking and more. Now, these tools don't necessarily know how tight I want to crop or when I want to spot remove a car in the background, but they do the bulk of the work with very little effort from me. Now, the culling I've been a little more resistant to because the AI can't possibly know what foot position I wanted or which exact composition and moment I was waiting for. But when I reframe how I think about it, that's where the idea of culling gets more interesting. Some of my culling decisions aren't creative. They're just decisions that need to be made. For example, in a series of family photos, which one shows everyone smiling with eyes open? If I have a tool that can make those decisions for me, then I can spend my mental strength on the decisions that matter. So instead of thinking about it as culling for me, I'm thinking about it as a culling tool to speed up my culling process. The main difference between culling is not the results. Again, it's not about making the decisions for you. It's about speeding up the process and presenting the information to you in a way that's quick to make a decision. It's saying, here's all the shots of a group photo and here's the best one based on the facial expressions. Therefore, to me, it's really about the interface for reviewing the cull. I love that Aftershoot's culling has a lot of customization at the outset. You can determine how you want to deal with closed eyes, blurry photos, duplicates. You can pick highlights. Then there's these little blow-up key faces in the corner that will show closed eyes and facial expressions, so you don't have to zoom in on faces to confirm. One cool thing about the Imagen culling is that it applies your edits during the cull. So essentially you're culling edited images, which it's sometimes nice to know how something is going to turn out before final selections. And supposedly Aftershoot will learn from the refinements that you make culling your shoot and get better at narrowing things down for you. I think the first few times I start to use the new tool, I'm going to second guess everything. So it will probably be a lot slower than just culling in Photo Mechanic. But hopefully after a few shoots, it will eventually save me time. Tell you what, maybe I'll try it for a few weddings, see if I can speed up my culling process, and I'll get back to you in a future video. So don't forget to subscribe for that. So what do we think about all this? The reality is that you'll have to try these tools for yourself and determine if they save you time and if that time savings is worth the money. For culling, I don't know yet, but for editing, I'm on board. Now, they'll work best if you have a consistent editing style and can upload large amounts of images from various lighting conditions for it to learn from. They also both have options for using sample styles or the editing style of another creator, but that's not really what we're asking. We're not asking if AI can help you edit like someone else, but rather, can it help you edit like you would do the edit? So what's the time versus money equation? Let's say it usually takes you 3 to 5 hours to cull a wedding from 7,000 images down to 700. And with Imagen or Aftershoot, it culls from 7,000 to 1,500 for you, and then you spend about an hour refining the cull. And then let's say it usually takes you another 5 hours to edit those 700 final images. Your chosen tool does the bulk of the work for you, and then you spot check everything and do more detailed editing like cloning and cropping on your maybe top 100 images, spending about another hour. Now you've reduced your post-production time from 8 to 10 hours to more like 2 hours. That's a total time savings in the 6-hour range. But let's conservatively say it only saves you 4 hours. 700 photos at Imagen's 5 cents per photo is $35 for that wedding, which if on one wedding it saves you 4 hours, that's around $9 an hour. Now this might be a little higher depending on which AI features you use in their pricing model. Or let's say you have at least 14 weddings per year and you spend $480 annually for Aftershoot's unlimited plan. Again, $35 per wedding. And that reduces the more projects you add to it because you're saving your time on each additional project, but your cost doesn't increase. So you can see that if you're a high volume shooter, Aftershoot is going to be a better value. But if you don't want to add to your overhead business costs, pay as you go is less committing because you only pay when you're earning money. I recommend you do your own math. Calculate your time savings to determine if it's worth the cost for you. I've noticed that a lot of people feel like the pricing on all these options is too high. I am a big fan of keeping my business overhead as low as possible. However, I also know that the only way for me to scale and do more work is more time. And if I can buy time at one price, say $9 an hour, and then go make a higher price by shooting more during that hour I would have spent editing, it might be worth it. You just need to be aware that your overhead expenses just went up. So you want to make sure you actually go out and book more work. So what are the other main differences between Aftershoot and Imagen? In my recent test of the updated Aftershoot editing, it was able to edit pretty darn similarly to Imagen, which I've been using for the past year. So in my opinion, both tools are great at editing. Now when it comes to culling, I haven't personally run enough tests to know if one is better than the other, but my guess is that they're both good enough to save you time, but not good enough to make your creative decision. And the interface is what is the biggest difference. So just be clear on your expectation for what you're hoping to achieve. Aftershoot allows you to edit offline, so that gives a lot of flexibility on how you structure your workflow, and you can simply drag and drop into whatever program you edit in, whether that's Capture One, Photoshop, Bridge, Lightroom, whatever. However, I think the fact that Imagen is a web-based app means you don't have to rely on your computer speed to edit your images. Imagen is great for Lightroom users who need super fast, consistent edits, and their pay-as-you-go model might make sense for a lot of people who don't want to sign up for the additional overhead. Not having online editing never really bothered me because personally I just plan when I upload, but it's nice to have and I can see when I might use that. And now, are there other tools to consider? Sure, there are a lot of tools out there. I actually tested out a new program that's in beta called Polar Next for ShotKit. I'll link the review I did for them below. It seems like a great option if you don't have a catalog to upload to Aftershoot or Imagen, because it learns in real time as you edit a wedding within the program. So in theory, you'll edit some reference edits to get started, and then it'll start editing your photos based on how you edit. And then as you edit more reference edits, it learns and makes real-time changes to photos from similar lighting conditions. Everything is done right in Polar Next, but feels like you're in Lightroom, and then you can export right to JPEG. I think this is a really powerful and innovative concept. Since the program is still in beta, I was getting more erratic and inconsistent edits than Imagen and Aftershoot, but if this is improved, Polar Next could be a contender. There are also other options like Filter Pixel, Luminar Neo, Narrative Select, NeuroPix, Evoto, and Impossible Things. I didn't dive that deeply, but all these programs are constantly updating and adapting. It seems like they fall into two different groups, culling and basic editing tools versus more elaborate editing tools. Filter Pixel and Narratives seem similar to Aftershoot and Imagen, with culling capabilities and an editing style learned from your previously edited images. NeuroPix is a plugin in Lightroom that learns from 20 edited images, which sounds like Polar Next, which I was just talking about. Impossible Things edits natively in Lightroom Classic, blending your presets with style changes. Luminar Neo is more for detailed editing of layers and masking and background removal. And similarly, Evoto is for retouching and fine-tuning. It's customized for portrait photographers with tools like background swapping. I'm sure each company would have something to say about what sets their own software apart, and maybe I'll dive deeper into learning more about some of these other tools, so let me know if there's something you're interested in the comments below. Regardless, my advice when making your decisions is to decide what your priorities are. Is it cost, speed, accuracy, compatibility with your editing style, the features of the program, ease of learning to use it? Then look for which one serves that need best. Just another note when it comes to reducing your culling and editing time, if you avoid overshooting, you'll have less images to cull. And if you work on dialing in your camera settings, framing, and composition, then you can get your image right in the camera, which reduces overall editing time as well. These have been big factors in helping us refine our process over the years, regardless of our specific post-production workflow. And we have a handful of videos on our channel to help you with all of those. I hope this comparison was helpful for you. Let me know what choice you make and why, and I'll see you in the next one.